G'day, my name's Gavin and welcome to another Brewery series video. So far we've already done Hop Nation, Stomping Ground and Bridge Road Brewing, and today we are on with Boatrocker, the Alpha Queen Pale Ale. As you may remember, a couple of months ago they invited the family and I out there to their barrel room. We had a great day, and then after that, a couple of weeks later, I went out for a brew day. Went into their brewery and we brewed this beer. So I'll have a quick look at how they did it in their brewery before we brew it right here. Boatrocker is in Brayside, Victoria. I caught the train to Mordialloc Station and it's just a short trip from there. The brewery itself is across the road from the barrel room. They brew, can and bottle all their beer on site. Like a lot of small breweries, they need to brew a double batch to fill a fermenter. Here you can see they're halfway, they've brewed one batch, they've emptied the boil kettle and their spent grain, and they've mashed in for the second batch. This is Matt. Matt and his wife Andrea started Boatrocker in 2009. Here we can see the grain being milled, and it goes up a long pipe with an auger inside all the way over to the mash tun where it's hand stirred in. Quite a simple but effective setup. There's the big whirlpool ad of Artemum, Centennial and Mosaic. Into a hot whirlpool. Once the whirlpool and steep is finished, we're off through a nice big plate chiller heat exchanger and off to the fermenter. And that there is like a hydro sample jar. They're just chilling a sample of wort there. So a thank you again goes out to Matt and his crew out there, and let's brew it. Since I was using a liquid malt, I made a starter. A 1.5 litre starter with 150 grams of light dry malt. I boiled it with some firm cap to avoid the boil overs. I quickly chilled it in the sink, and I added my WLP 007 English ale yeast. If you can't get a 007 yeast, just use SO4 and that'll be fine. Use a couple of packets. So then it goes on the stir plate for a day or two before brew day. Now we're mainly using a mix of Gladfield and American ale malts. So I guess the main difference between them is a slight colour. Like when we talk in EBC colour ratings, one's 5 and one's 5.7. There's a couple of other small differences. So the ale malt's more like a Maris Otter, a good substitute for Maris Otter, and the American ales got a little bit less colour and a little bit less flavour. A quick look at the wheat here, and as I've mentioned before, it's much smaller than the other grains, so I like to mill it separately. Look, that's not needed. I don't think they did that at the brewery, but I like to do it just to make sure that wheat gets cracked. As far as amounts go, it's 2.5 kilo, which is about 5.5 pound of each of the ale malts, and 280 grams of the wheat, which is about 10 ounces. I'm starting with 20 litres of water and I'm adding salts to get a ratio of about 2 to 1 sulphate to chloride. about 100 sulfate and 50 chloride, and my 5 ml of lactic acid. We're going for a mash temp of 68 degrees, so you probably want your strike water in the low 70s. Some people might notice here that I'm using the reinforced false bottom, one of the new ones. Now, I never had any troubles with the original one, so I thought I'd try this one. Look, there really isn't much difference, I don't find. Of course, they've got the bends in them, so they're a bit more sturdy, and they are a little bit bigger. They do go to the edge a little bit more. So if you think you're having troubles with the old false bottom, you might want to try one of these new ones. And there'll be a link in the description so you can go and have a look. I'll make sure the bottom of the malt pipe is seated correctly. And I add some rice hulls. You can give them a rinse if you like beforehand, but the mash in went pretty easy. There's really not much to see here. I let it settle for 5 minutes, and after that I put on the pump and adjust the flow to about half. It's been 15 minutes, so I'm going to take my pH sample. I haven't had to touch it at all. It's hardly come up. Maybe a centimetre. I've got a fair flow. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'll take this sample. So we're halfway through. Everything's looking good. The wort's nice and clear. Time's up, and we're going to go into mash out. They didn't mash out in the brewery. It's a little bit hard on some systems, on those big systems, to do it, but because I can do it here and force a habit, I'm going to mash out. So I'll just bump it up to 76 degrees and leave it for 15 to 20 minutes. I mashed in with 20 litres. So I'll sparge with 14.5 to 15 litres. That's the rough amounts I use for nearly every brew in this system, unless of course the grain bill is really big or really small, then I'll change it a bit. So I stopped sparging when I hit my 30 litre mark. I took a gravity reading and I was 1046. The 60-minute hop addition is 6 grams of Magnum. Still got a little bit of the boil left, but I'm just going to swap this over for the whirlpool arm because we're going to be doing a whirlpool. If you notice the camera angle is changing a fair bit, it's because the steam is blowing all around the place today and I'm trying to keep the camera out of the steam. It doesn't usually happen like that. But we're coming up to the 10-minute addition of 15 grams of Centennial, and I'm just going to add a bit of Werflock. You can probably go half a tab, but I've got this whole one here that I want to use up. Whoops, there goes the 10-minute addition. And there's 15 grams of Centennial. Yeah, I always try and push it down because there's, especially when it's a smallish addition like that, you want it all in there. You don't want it stuck to the sides. I've shown this before, but I'll show it again just in case you haven't seen the other videos. As this has been boiling, I've still had some water left over in my HLT. I bump up the temperature to about 85 degrees, 90 degrees I think it actually is at the moment. And I run through my chiller to sanitize it. I've already cleaned it after I used it last. So I just run that 95 degree water through. It's probably been running through there for an hour. It doesn't need to be that long. 15 minutes or something will be enough. But so that will be sanitized. I don't have to run sanitizer through it. I don't have to waste sanitizer. I don't have to waste time. I knew it was already clean, and I've been running 90 degree water through it. So it is sanitized. All I need to do is unhook it and switch it over to here when I want to chill. So I can switch that whole fitting over to this one. You can make your own fitting, or you can buy an extra one if you've only got one. Or while you've got the whirlpool arm in, you could have cleaned your original one. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But yeah, all I'll do is sort of drain this quickly, I'll have 20 minutes anyway while this is whirlpooling in a minute. I'll drain this and it'll be ready to go, and I can just plonk it straight in there and go straight into my fermenter through the chiller. No chemicals, no anything. The timer's just about to go off. So what I'll do, as soon as the timer goes off, I'll turn the elements off. There it is. Now, I'll wait before I start whirlpooling till it stops boiling. You don't want to be dragging those bubbles down into your pump. It can sort of stall your pump. Just let it settle. Only take what's that, 15 seconds or something? Maybe not even. Now I'll turn the pump on. You'll get that. Be careful if you got your hand there. I've burnt myself before. That was just the air in the tube there. I can see it's starting to work already. Now they whirlpool the whirlpool hops for 3 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. Start that. Now it's very similar to what you've seen me do in other videos, where sometimes I'll split the whirlpool in half. I'll say whirlpool for 10 minutes, then stop it for the last 10 minutes for everything to settle. They do it a little bit differently for this recipe. They whirlpool for 3 minutes, and then they let it steep for 17 minutes. So it's a 20-minute all up, but a 3-minute whirlpool, and then a 17-minute steep. I'm going to be a bit cheeky and make sure that stuff gets down in there. Oh, it smells good. The hop additions I added to the whirlpool were 17 grams of Artemum, 17 grams of Centennial, and 17 grams of Mosaic. When I first brewed this, I couldn't find any Artemum at all. That's misspelt there on the Kegland packet, but I couldn't find any. So the first version I did, I substituted with Cascade, and it was still great. If you can't find Cascade or Artemum, you could try Amarillo. That Kegland version is cryo, so you'd use half as much. And I'm pretty sure I got that other packet from Hoppy Days. Alright, that's a 3-minute whirlpool. So now we can turn the pump off. All that would have done, one, it will have mixed up the hops in and got it all loose, and the other thing it would have done, it would have helped to form that tube cone in the bottom already. So now we just let that steep for another 17 minutes. So while we're waiting for this steep, I'm going to shimmy things around a little bit in a minute, but we can get rid of this. And I'll take this, put it straight into here. Everything's sanitized. Now we're hooked up directly to my chiller straight away. So now I've hooked the hoses up. Counter flow, if you don't know, you're going to have the hot wort coming in that way and the hot water coming out that same side. Some people get confused because you got the hot and the hot, but that's the way it works. You travel in different directions. So you'll have the cold wort, chilled wort coming out of here, and you've got your cold water going into there. We're just about to start chilling, but there is one thing I always like to do. I hasn't made a video for a while, and that is to clear any gunk. Sometimes there's a bit of gunk just sitting in the pump or something, or in the lines, and you only have to take less than a cup out. Just turn on the pump. That'll do it. I find sometimes if you don't do that and you do happen to have a little bit of gunk, I was fine that time. There's no gunk there, none at all. But my last brew, I didn't do that. And because you sort of back off the output of the chiller sometimes, so you can chill it down further. When you back it off, the hot wort stays in the chiller for longer, so it gets cooler. But sometimes if you're backing it off, especially if you're using a PET fermenter like I am, you don't want it to come out hot. Sometimes if you get a little bit of junk come through, then it'll block there. I mean, it's just as easy clear to open it, but you know, it's just something else I don't need to worry about. But as you can see there, hopefully, there was no junk there at all. Kind of wasted that bit. Nah, I'll be fine. So now I've done that, I'm just going to stick this in the fermenter and we're ready to go. I can back it off a little bit at first. I can even close it right up. The hot work coming out, I can close that right up. Make sure the hoses are on. I haven't turned the water on just yet. I'll turn the water on first. Leave that shut. Get the wort coming. I'll have to open it up because, you know, there'll be an air bubble in there. The wort won't get through. But open it up just a touch, and it just gives the time for the wort to catch up and fill this right up and get the maximum chilling out of it. 24 seconds left. I'm going to go and turn the hoses on. Well, singular hose, and that'll do 1, 2 times up. Turn the pump on. Now I've got the hot wort coming through, go through the chiller, and we'll end up in here. As I said, I had it turned off. I'll just slowly open it, just a little bit through. I can hear that air got through then, so the hot wort should start coming. It's got to be easy because I am going into my pet, you know, plastic fermenter. It's got to come out cool, or I'm going to make a mess of things. Coming out. I keep it slow at first. I don't have a temperature gauge in here. Sometimes I do. I could put one in. I didn't today. That's coming out very, very cool. I can tell. I'm going to open that up a little bit. I always feel the side of the fermenter where it's coming out. If I feel it's starting to get warm, I'll stop it immediately. Or just back it off right until it chills. But I think we're right there. Actually, that feels nice and cool. It's a nice golden colour. Never be scared of how dark sometimes they look when they first go into the fermenter. It happens a lot. You'll find that it lightens up along the way. Is they use a 007 English ale yeast. Now, I bought this. That was hard to find too. It happened to be out of stock at most places, but I got it from a place in Melbourne, and unfortunately, I opened it to make the starter earlier. Like sometimes there is, and when I open the packet, sometimes there is condensation in there, but this wasn't condensation. This was like, it was the inner packet that comes in. There's another packet that's inside there where it was leaking, and I wasn't very happy about it. But I still went and made the starter. But unfortunately, it just doesn't look like it's doing anything, and I'm just a little bit worried. It was on. I've turned off the stir plate to see if there any krausen would form on top, and it's just looking. I'm not confident to pitch it, to be honest. So it looks like I've wasted my money there, but it's okay. So SO4 would be a great alternative if you want to use dry yeast. But that's just, I'm not really happy with the way that looks. The Patreons, it was from Keg King, and I'm not meaning to slag them because it's probably not their fault, but yeah, that's where I got it from. If you are after some, they're the only place close I could find, but I'm not going to use it. I'm just not happy with that, the way it looks. You know, if you buy a pack, it probably won't be broken, but mine was. It smells good. It doesn't smell too bad, but there's nothing there. There is nothing there. Yeah, more would settle out, but I just don't know. I'm not going to risk it. Now, I didn't have SO4 on hand. That was okay. I had Nottingham. I'm going to use that. Yeah, it might attenuate a slight bit more, but you know, it's a pale ale anyway, American pale ale, it'll be fine. Set it at 19. At 19, you're only 19. So that's been in about 12 hours, and we're getting action. Where this has been in about a day and a half, 2 days, I think by now. 2 days. And it's barely even foamed up. I'm glad I didn't put it in. The starter is pathetic. Probably been about 36 hours or something. It's Thursday morning and it's pumping away, but this poor old sad 007 starter's just looking pathetic still after, you know, that's 3 days or something, whatever it's been. Glad I didn't use it. When fermentation was nearly finished, I dry hopped with 30 grams of Artemum, 30 grams of Centennial and 30 grams of Mosaic. If you have the setup with like a conical fermenter that you can pump CO2 in the bottom, you can wait till, you know, the ferment's completely over, dry hop, and then you can bubble up some CO2 from the bottom to keep those hops in suspension and to help with the extraction of the aromas. Don't go too hard, because that's also a method you can use for stripping aromas. But so you just go easy, but just to pick up those hops. You might do that twice during the dry hop time. Then after about 3 days, we cold crush it again for maybe 2 or 3 days. So that's my version. You just saw me pour. Let's pour one of theirs. As you can see from the start, mine's a little bit more cloudy. Mine could have done with some more finings. I'm sure they find in the fermenter there. But besides that, they are identical. And they should be. People have commented on some of my other Brewery series videos and they've said, oh, your clone's very close. It should be very close, because these Brewery series videos, the recipe are from the brewer. The differences you're probably picking up is probably what you're doing in your brewery, and that's not a bad thing. We all have differences in our breweries. It's just getting used to that and learning how they work. Check out the aroma. That's nice, fresh. That's been in the can a few months, this one too, but it's still got a nice fresh aroma. It's very, very similar. I think I need to push it a little bit, and sometimes that happens, well, nearly all the times that happens with these brewery videos. I end up brewing them a few times just to get those end hops right. They get different utilization in the brewery, in the kettle and in the fermenter. So more often than not, 99% of the time, you've got to up the hops a little bit compared to the brewery recipe that you use at the end. That can mean the whirlpool and the fermenter dry hopping. So besides that, there is the different yeast. I don't think it's made too much of a difference. I tried to use the right yeast, but as you saw, the 007 I got didn't quite work out, so I used Nottingham. But I couldn't tell the difference if you swap them around, I don't think. They're very, very similar. A quick tip, if you do use the 007, or you can sub it out for SO4, the Saf Ale, those yeasts, you bump them up. You've got to bump the temperature. By the time they get to about 1025, which was exactly the same with the Bridge Road Celtic Red Ale, you need to bump the temperature, or they can very easily drop out and you'll finish high. So if you don't take readings, you know, you can probably wait till day 3 or 4 and bump it, depending on how quickly it started. But it's something you really got to do. It'll just make sure it finishes off nice and quick for you and doesn't stall. So that's about it for this video. Another successful Brewery Series video. Big thank you goes out to Matt and his wife and the crew out there at Boatrocker and the Barrel Room. Thanks very much. Get out there and support them. Support your local brewery. Support independent breweries especially. And thank you to my subscribers, to my viewers. Click like, do all that sort of stuff. Thank you especially to my patrons because they keep this channel going without. But seriously, I wouldn't be able to continue doing this without my patrons. I have a few more lined up for the Brewery Series. One is in the fermenter now. It's just about to be cold crashed. So hopefully in a week or two, that video will be out too. It's an XPA. I'll give you that tip. It's an XPA from Queensland, from a brewery in Queensland. And during my live stream brew day last week, I also got word from a very famous brewer down here in Victoria that we might be getting one of his recipes. It suits me fine. Old man yelling at clouds. He said it on the live stream now, so he has to do it. All right, thank you. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.